Hello, Internet. I got double audio going on. All right, there we go. Okay. All right. Hello, Internet. How is everybody this evening? Hope everybody's having a wonderful hump day. It's Wednesday. You made it to the middle of the week. I'm so proud of you guys. Oh, you guys. My mom is watching. I better watch my language tonight. Yep. You guys remind me to watch my language. Oh, there she is, right on cue. There's Scarlett. Yep. She heard I was talking to my mom. She wanted to say hi. Come here, Scarlett. Come say hi to Shelly. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. All right. You all stretched out? Okay. Can you go lay down now? Can you go lay down, please? Can you lay down? You chewed up a sticky note. I see that. Did you do this? Scarlett? Did you do this? You did, didn't you? Yeah, you're going to go over there now, aren't you? Uh-huh. Yeah, she knows she's in trouble. All right, folks. How is everybody? Hope everyone's having a fantastic evening. I'm not even going to get into the news too much because I just want to rant and rave about stuff. But hi, Wally World. How you doing? Shelly, Wally World says hi. You should, anybody, if you guys are watching, you want to hang out in the chat, we have a very nice chat. Everybody's lovely over there. It's not like Twitter. Don't worry. It's not like that. People are nice over there. It's welcoming. It's a friendly environment. Haven't seen any shouting matches over there yet. The show is still young, but for the most part, everybody seems to be pretty nice. We got some regulars over there, and they're nice people. So, all right. How is everybody this evening? Let's make sure that we're live on all the platforms and things. Looks like we are live over there on Rumble. Yes, we are indeed. Probably live on X, but just let me check. Actually, here, let me go. I want to go to my homepage to rant and rave a little bit anyway, because something sort of dawned on me today when I was typing things up. It's about censorship. It's about California censorship and cancel culture, and we're all aware of it. Like, we're all aware that we censor ourselves, and it's all around us. We got to be careful of what we say, but we don't talk about how that's a problem enough. Like, it's a huge problem that if you lean even slightly right, if you're slightly conservative, if you're even a classic liberal from back in the day, and you're anti-war and pro-free speech, if you're outspoken about that stuff, you're canceled. You have to be careful about saying things that used to be pretty mild views, pretty standard California views, and now you're canceled. You can't talk about the things that you used to be able to talk about 15, 20 years ago. And that's insane. And we're not talking about wild, crazy ideas. We're talking about basic stuff that you can't talk about anymore. And it's a problem. We censor ourselves way too much. And you guys know where this started for me. I was censoring myself at my job. And every time we put a mask on, some of you guys probably still have to do it. That go into people's houses. Some of you guys that go into people's houses probably still have to put a mask on because they're demanding that you do so. And every time you do that, you're censoring yourself, really. And if you don't think the mask does anything for you, you don't think it does anything for anybody else, you firmly believe this, and it hinders you, it keeps you from expressing your face, the things that the expressions that you express non-verbally, smiles and that kind of thing, facial expressions, keeps you from breathing, might fog up your glasses. It's not good to wear those things needlessly all day. And that's a very fair thing to address with your supervisor or boss. Like, hey, look, this doesn't do anything. And I'm not going to wear this around a construction site anymore. Anyway, that's what I got fired for. I just refused to wear a mask. That's it. Where I'd worn a mask in the past. I'd done it. I just done it. And February 2023 rolled around. And I said, I'm done with all of this. I didn't have savings. I didn't have another job lined up. I'm in a trade where I can usually get a job pretty quick because it's a kind of a niche market. I'm an AV guy. The AV guys out there know that that's kind of a it's kind of a niche market. Well, usually it's really easy for me to find work. Well, I made a video about getting fired for not having a mask on my way home, like right after I got fired. The reason I was actually driving home in the work van, the same company that just fired me, but I was still in the work van because they didn't expect to have to fire me. They thought they brought me back in and they just wanted me to sign these papers saying that I would, go along with company policies moving forward. And I said, okay, that's fine. I'll go along with company policies, but I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm not going to wear a mask anymore. And then that's when things got real. And they told me they fired me, and they're really sad about it. They're really worked up about it. We'd become we were like a family, that company that I was at, but no, it didn't stop them from firing me. Didn't stop them from taking my livelihood, like this, it was my livelihood. I mean, 2 paychecks and 3 paychecks and I'm out. Like it's, many of us Californians don't have a lot of runway if things go sideways for us. And I decided to take my stand anyway, because enough of this nonsense, enough of this self-censorship, because we're so scared of losing our jobs. This isn't just, I'm not just talking about COVID here. I'm talking about expressing any sort of views, but I'm just using COVID as my example, the mask thing. I remember before, because I wasn't vaccinated, the same city that I got fired from didn't let me eat inside restaurants. Mel's Diner was the first place that didn't let me eat inside because I didn't have a vaccine. It was insane to me when it happened. Went to lunch with a bunch of coworkers. It was really cold. I've told this story before. It was cold and there was a tent set up outside, but the heater wasn't working very well. And we all sat to sit outside. And there was like 10 of us. I said to my buddy, Jason, I was like, why are we sitting outside? He wasn't vaccinated either. And he just looks at me all weird. And I'm just like, oh, God, are you serious? Like, is this really happening right now? Are we really not allowed to eat inside because we didn't inject ourselves with a government mandated substance? Is that really what's happening right now? And my mind was kind of blown. And, so we sat outside and I refused. I was like, okay, I ain't spending any money here. I'm not going to, but I didn't want to cause a big scene. So I sat there, but I'm going to make my own personal protests, and I'm not going to spend any of my money at this establishment that doesn't even allow me to eat inside because I don't want to inject myself. So I didn't. And then that became a thing. When the waitress came to me, I said, no, I'm good. I'm not that hungry. And they're like, oh, what's wrong? I'm buying, because then people automatically think you're broke, and I've been there too. So I was like, no, you guys, it's good. And like, it turned into a thing. And one of the wokester engineers that happened to be with us was just like, I got to ask, is it because of 5G? All arrogantly and stupid. Like immediately just insinuating that I'm some crazy conspiracy theorist because I didn't want to inject myself with something to protect me against something with a 99.9 point, let's just say even say a 99.0% survival rate. There's a 1% chance I'll die. I'll take those chances. I will. Because at the time, 37, ultra marathon runner, eat pretty well, take pretty good care of myself. I'm not on any medication, don't have any comorbidities. No, I'll take my chances. I'm good. Like, what are you talking 5G? What are you talking about? Because I didn't want to take it. Like it turned into such a thing. Anyway, we got all past that. We got past all that stuff. Thought I was going to get fired. Supreme Court stepped in. Remember the whole 100 employees or more? Biden wanted to get us all fired. That was insane too. The federal government was trying to get us all fired. How insane is that? It was insane enough. Medical workers, federal, state employees, the military, all that was insane enough for this untested substance that protects us with. Anyway, that was already insane enough. And then they go and try to force it on everyday employees for companies with 100 employees or more. This is an arbitrary number that they pulled out. If that would have went through, it would have went to every other company. So I was stressed out the whole time. I was stressed out. That was a bad time. The whole time I was just stressed out. Always like, is this really happening? Am I really going to get fired because I'm not going to take the vaccine? No chance. There's nothing you're going to do where I would take the vaccine. You would have to strap me down to get me to take it. There's nothing you could do. And there's a lot of other people like that too. We got past all that. We got past it. The Supreme Court stepped in, said, nope, put the kibosh on that, even though they didn't save the medical workers, which they should have. We got all past it. And then February of 2020 rolls around. I'm back on a job site that I've been on for a couple of months already. Not even a job site I'm in charge of, just a job site I'm helping out on. Usually I'm in charge of job sites. Had other jobs that I was running at the time, big project that I'd been on for 2 years that I was in charge of. And anyway, so it's a job that I've been helping out on for months because we were kind of slow at the time. In San Francisco, Pacific Heights, a true 5-story, well, not a true, it was a 3-story house in Pacific Heights with an attic that was, made into a finished room and a basement. So 5 stories, and then it had a rooftop deck that looked out over the Palace of Fine Arts and the Golden Gate Bridge. This is like prime time real estate, Coit Tower off to the right. It was insane property. Insane. This is the job I'm working on, but it's completely in construction. This isn't a finished home. There's no sheetrock. It's all sticks. It's all studded out. There's plumbers putting in their pipes. We're pulling wire. Like, it's a construction site. I'd been on it for months. And then all of a sudden I walked in, and I should have noticed, and I guess I kind of did, but I didn't really register, but everybody's wearing masks one of these days. And it was first time back there in a few weeks because, we're just coming back to do a change order. And I go in there and everybody's wearing masks, but it doesn't really register with me. Go upstairs, and the dude I'm working with comes up to me, and he's got one of those black paper masks in his hands. The ones that, you could buy at 7-Eleven that who knows who put it together, one of those disgusting things. Comes up, hands it to me, and like tongue in cheek, I say it with a smile on my face, but I'm serious at the same time. I just said, I will not comply. And I take it from him anyway, and I just put it in my pocket. And then not like 30 seconds later, the foreman on the job, this little dude, tiny little dude, looks like he works out. He's kind of buff, but he's fucking, oh, sorry, Shelly. I dropped an F-bomb. It just came out. And this normally doesn't happen. Man, I'm sorry. I stopped it like halfway through. It was only like a half F-bomb. It was a F firecracker. All right. Anyway, this little dude comes around the corner. He must have overheard me, and he's got a mask in his hand. And, so I said, well, does that mean I won't be allowed to stay on the job site if I refuse to put a mask on? And he immediately gets mad and goes into this whole spiel about how somebody already got sick on the job site because they got COVID. And if 2 people get sick on the job site, or if 3 people get sick on the job site gets shut down. So, one more person's like their second strike, and then 3 strikes, you're out. And so being the smart ass that I am, I said, okay, what does me wearing a mask have to do with that? And, because it's February 2023. Like, this isn't, like middle when they're pushing hard vaccines anymore, even though then masks were ridiculous. Masks were ridiculous the whole time. But we're so far beyond this. This wasn't even a year ago, folks. This is like 6 what month are we in? Yeah, this is 7 months ago. Like, this wasn't that long ago, you guys. And so I ask him, so what does that have to do with me wearing a mask? And that pissed him off. And he just walks away, and a minute later, 90 seconds later, I get a call from my project manager, and he's kind of laughing because he's a cool dude. And it sucks because a bunch of the people that I worked with there, I was really cool with, and there's only one person I've talked to since. And it sucks because a few of those people there were supposed to be my friends, like good homies that we saw all the stuff that I talk about. We saw we lined up. We had a lot of the very same views, but all of them ghosted me. None of them want anything to do with me anymore. Probably because that company had to pay me for firing me because they knew legally they didn't have a leg to stand on. And yeah, I went at them. Why would I not? You go after my livelihood for some crap about firing me for not wearing a mask. Yeah, I'm going to come at you. Anyway, they kicked me off the job site, got sent home. owner of the company calls me. He's super pissed. I can tell, and I'm not trying to cause a scene. Like, that's the thing too. I'm not trying to make a big giant stink of this. It's just every time I put on one of those masks, I feel like I'm degrading a little bit of my soul. I feel like I'm killing a little bit of myself every single time. You have this moral framework that you're trying to live by, and all of a sudden it's nope, cover your face. It's so degrading. That's what it is. Every time you put it in, it degrades you. Every time I put a mask on, it degraded me a little more. That's how I felt, and I have every right to feel that way. Anyway, that was sort of it, and I wasn't trying to make a giant thing of it. Next day, I get called in. He sends me home. He said he was furloughing me. Is what he told me. Sends me home, and then his wife calls me, who's the head of HR, owner's wife, owner of the company, one of the 3 owners of the company. His wife calls me, who's the head of HR. This isn't a giant company, less than 100 employees, but close to 100 employees. Anyway, she calls me. She's like, "You're not furloughed. We're sending you home today with pay. Come in tomorrow. You're not fired. Yeah, we just need to talk about what happened." I'm immediately suspicious. And yeah, I got the van cleaned out that night. I got all my tools out of there that night I got everything perfectly arranged and packed that night. I even cleaned the van, I didn't want to turn it in. I had a feeling I was going to get fired the next day. So I even cleaned it and didn't want to even if I got fired, I didn't want to leave the company on bad terms. Like, that was how much I liked these people that I was there with. Anyway, go in, I already told you, go in. They told me I got to be willing to comply with, company regulations, all that. And just told them I'm not willing to wear a mask. They sent me home. That's what I was in the company van. That brings us up to where I started this whole story at. I'm driving home in the company van, and I text my buddy Chris. I was like, I'm thinking about making a video about it and just putting it out on Twitter. It was still Twitter at the time. And he told me, he was like, "You should." He was like, "It probably won't do anything." He's like, "Well, why not? What do you have to lose? You already got fired." So you've already been canceled, basically. So I did. I just made a quick video, and it's not hard. I had a phone holder thing, and I just hit record, and I made a video and just sort of ranted for a bit and hit send. I only had 400 followers at the time. Like 400 and something followers, can't remember. And by the time I got home, which was like 20 minutes later, it had gone super mega ultra viral already. Like, it was just going banana balls all over the place. And within an hour, I had gotten I was getting so many direct messages and notifications that I couldn't like keep up. So Tucker Carlson's booking agent direct messaged me on Instagram, because I didn't post anything on Instagram. But she found me on Instagram and went over there and direct messaged me. It's very smart, Lexi. And that's how she got a hold of me. And then I ended up going on Tucker that night. And it was super cool, obviously, going on Tucker. And, everything blew up. And I knew this was going to happen. Like, once stuff started blowing up, it was like, okay, this takes it to a different place. Like, now, it's not just me getting fired for wearing a mask. I'm going on the biggest news show in the country and explaining why I got fired for wearing a mask. I went on there and I talked shit about Nancy Pelosi, and I clearly expressed like a do not comply type attitude. And when you're working in the audio video industry for extremely wealthy people, the house I described to you guys, a 5-story house in Pacific Heights, you can imagine how much money that thing is worth, what it overlooks. I can't say the people that I worked for, because you know who they are. So as you can imagine, with this kind of clientele and the companies that I work for, which is a very small AV, especially really high-end AV, like we're talking stupid amounts of money, insane, ungodly amounts of money that these people put into their homes. We did a job where we put in, I believe it was 1.4 million. It might have been more. It might have been 2-point-something million. Put in $1-something million worth of AV equipment into a home, and it was for a single event, and it was ripped out before a remodel but the whole thing was remodeled. It was for one event. Like, this is the kind of money these people spend. Anyway, it's like there's a certain amount of money they have to spend. These are the people that I was in their homes and I was working for, but not always in their homes, never when they're there, that kind of stuff. Anyway, I wasn't in a finished home when I got fired, that kind of crap. Point is, I got kind of blacklisted after I went on Tucker. Like, all of a sudden, it should have been very easy for me to just put out my resume on Indeed and, oh, holy crap. I got this much experience with Savant, Control 4, AMX, Crestron, even though AMX isn't used anymore. All the things. I've been doing this 18 years, residential and commercial. I got experience building video walls, tons of experience building conference rooms, team rooms, all hands rooms, dedicated movie theaters in homes, distributed audio, distributed video. I know my stuff. I've been doing it a long time, and I actually really like it. And I'm really good at building racks with all the equipment, making it look beautiful, wire management. I actually really like doing that stuff. It should be easy for me to just find employment. That stuff, that's a niche market, and it's almost never not hiring, especially for somebody that's really skilled and been doing it for a long time. Well, all of a sudden I can't get any callbacks. Not just for that, for other stuff. I was like, all right, screw it. I'll try to be a tree climber for one of the tree companies, like Davey, Davey Tree Company. Applied for them and got an interview set up, and all of a sudden they ghosted me. No callbacks, nothing, just can't get a hold of anybody. And then I emailed the person's boss that I was supposed to have an interview with, and that person just said, oh, sorry, we've moved on, we're not gonna. And just weird stuff started happening. I can't get any callbacks, and so naturally I decided to start speaking louder, make a podcast, do all this stuff. And now it's like I'm fully pot committed, and I've realized that I'm essentially unemployable now here. Like, essentially unemployable. It's funny that I got this cross-country coaching gig because it's amazing. I love running, trail running specifically, and cross-country coaching in the Santa Cruz Mountains, or you're going to end up trail running. And there's no politics involved with it whatsoever. None. I don't have to say, it's such a great break from politics. I get to go out, not only am I trail running, but I get to teach my work ethic to people. To show up even when you're tired. You just show up and start putting in the work, and the work will get done. Always pushing through, teaching these kids how to run and not get hurt, how to pace yourself and not sprint and then have to walk, and how to run uphill, how to run downhill without rolling your ankle, and how to win, and more importantly, how to lose. There's so much reward in it. That's just that. It has nothing to do with politics. The thing is, I guarantee you, it's only a matter of time before some radical parent realizes what my views are, and they go after me to try to get me fired from a cross-country gig that doesn't really pay me. I've already put $500 into it. I think I'll make like $1,200 at the end of the year. So I'll make $700 in total. I'm not making any money off of this with the time that I'm putting in. I'm not doing it for the money at all. I would do it for free if there was no money in it whatsoever. But somebody would still go after me to try to get me fired from this gig. And they would, especially if you're from California, they would. They absolutely would. And who would that hurt? Would it hurt me? I mean, yeah, it would suck because I wouldn't get to do what I just told you guys. I wouldn't get the reward that I get from getting to teach kids a work ethic. Things that I really think is lacking today. A idea of meritocracy, and show up and do the best you can, and don't compare yourself to the people that are just naturally super gifted and crazy fast, because you're always gonna have those kids, and you're gonna have the kids that can barely run a lap. You got to encourage all of them. And I like the slower kids sometimes more than I like the fast kids, because they're the ones that are really giving it their all, and you can see how hard they're pushing, and it's just such a rewarding thing to see. But a radical parent would go after me for no other reason than they don't like my political philosophy. Even though when I'm out there, zero politics will be mentioned to anyone. I won't be trying to instill my political philosophy on anybody. My moral framework, maybe my approach towards running, and you can apply that to other things in life, but that's all I'm there to do, is be a running coach and teach people how to be better runners. And they can take what I teach them and apply it to their life. And that's what running did for me. And that's why I love this so much, because running changed my life. Trail running absolutely changed my life. And I guess this whole rant is to just say, everyone together has to start speaking up, even if it's just 10% more. Everybody, because you know how far out of control this is now, California. This isn't a right-left thing anymore. You know how far this has gone. You see the rampant crime. You see that theft is just legalized. It's insane what's happening in Oakland. It's insane what's happening in San Francisco. It's insane what's happening in LA, and all the little places in between that are starting to trickle into. You guys know this is out of control. You know this isn't Trump's fault, and you know this isn't crazy MAGA right-wingers that did all this. We need to talk, guys. This is our fault, okay? We need to look in the mirror. We really need to stop self-censoring. I know you're scared that you'll get fired. You may not have anything lined up. You probably don't. And you might end up on the streets. But do you know where it goes from here? This is, in my opinion, a pivotal moment in history, where if people don't start speaking up and saying no more, we're not doing this radical nonsense anymore, and just talking about it. That's all you have to do. Just talk about it. When people start saying ridiculous, crazy things, say no. Don't let people bully you around. Don't put on the mask. Don't do things you know are insane and wrong. You'll know when to do it. This is the make or break point. A lot of people think California's gone already. I don't, because I know my Californian neighbors. I was born and raised here, folks, like many of you. So you guys that are my age, that are born and from here, you know this crap didn't start here. It wasn't like this in the 90s and early 2000s. Things went wacky somewhere, guys, and we need to really talk about it. It's insane, the stuff that's going on. And well, I think Gavin Newsom senses that something wacky is going on, because he seemed to, he signed something into law today. So let's take a look at it. Wally World, mass at 23. Yeah, it's middle. It was stupid. It was really stupid. Terry Wallace, you're back. All right. Okay. I froze for a second over there on Rumble. All right. Terry Wallace, you can watch on YouTube if you want to join the chat. It's nice to see you. I see you got suspended on YouTube. That's on X, I should say. That's a bummer. It's yeah, I wonder what you did now. You got to DM me. Tell me what you did. All right, let's look at this bill that Gavin Newsom signed, and I want to also read this article from Newsweek at some point. But let's go over to the slick-haired Joker himself, and yeah, let's see. Actually, I could just share my screen here. There we are. All right. So let's go over to Max Bonilla says, breaking bill to limit hand counting of ballots, AB 969, signed into law by Gavin Newsom. It was drafted in response to Shasta County's decision back in January to hand count ballots in the future elections. Sorry, folks. I am parched. I need a sip. Okay. It was drafted in response to Shasta County's decision back in January to hand count ballots. Okay, I think my dog's snoring again. Sorry, and my other dog is freaking out at her own shadow. Oh, man, that is hilarious. To hand count ballots in future elections and cancel its contract with the Dominion voting system. The bill, which was approved by 2/3 of lawmakers in both chambers, would only allow hand counts by local election officials under narrow circumstances, San Jose Mercury News. The only exceptions to the law are the regular elections, which with a maximum of 1,000 eligible registered voters and a special election with a maximum of 5,000 registered voters. The Democrats who authorized the bill, Assemblymember Gail Pellerin, said hand counts are complex, imprecise, expensive, and resource intensive. You can't just all of a sudden start saying the exact opposite thing that's been said about ballots since like the history of voting. The only way to do like a super foolproof election is to hand count the ballots and have multiple people hand count to verify the hand count. And yeah, so this is from Max Bonilla. This kid's great. He's been on the show before. He does excellent work. Here, I have the bill pulled up. I have the text. Let me see. Let's see here. Let me see if I can find the text for you guys. Ellen, welcome. You're a child of the 60s and 70s. We can speak up with little pressure, no repercussions. The internet is a social. It's too dangerous. Well, it's not just dangerous on the internet either. So I'm not anonymous. I mean, my name is Michael Oxford. Santa Cruz Mountain Goat's sort of my alter ego, if you will. But it's easy to remember. So that's a good thing. But I have to go out in the real world. And I'm not anonymous on the internet, and I drive old cars, and I'm 6'6", and I go trail running everywhere. So I'm pretty identifiable, So it's like to speak out nowadays, you're literally risking your safety. It's insane. It's insane to say things that aren't that controversial. Like it shouldn't be that controversial to say, yeah, you know what? I respect transgender people. I respect people that feel that they're born in the wrong body and they want to go through any biological surgery that they feel necessary. I personally don't think it's a good idea. I think it's a very, very bad idea and potentially it's a horrible idea to give a child puberty blockers or any sort of surgery for gender affirming care. So none of that stuff should be able to be done before 18. That shouldn't be that controversial of an opinion. If somebody was born a biological male, that person shouldn't be able to compete against biological females in competitive sports for safety reasons and competitive reasons. And they shouldn't be able to share locker rooms and saunas and bathrooms for, again, safety and privacy reasons, for things that were established for women by feminists, for women's rights to their own space, safe space for women to compete, to have privacy. And all of a sudden that's being attacked, and it's the people on the right that have to defend it. It's insane. And that shouldn't be that controversial of an opinion, but it can get you canceled today. A normal person, a normal everyday person can get fired for that. Expressing that view online outside of work, a normal everyday person can get fired for that. That is insane. It's insane. So, all right, sorry. Let me see if I can pull up the text for this AB 969 bill that makes it so we can't hand count ballots anymore. It's freaking insane. So let's look at this actual bill. So here we go. All right. Legislative Council Digest. AB 969, Pellerin Elections Voting Systems. Existing elections specify procedures for manual vote counts for semifinal official canvass in a precinct, including, among others, after the polls have closed, commencing a public count of the ballots cast unopened to ascertain whether the number of ballots corresponds with the number of signatures on the roster. The manual vote count procedures apply to all elections in which ballots are counted by hand. Ballots counted manually in a central place are required to be counted by precinct separately under direction of election officials or their authorized deputies, in the same manner as provided where ballots are counted at the polling place. This bill would prohibit an elections official from performing a manual vote count in a semifinal official canvass pursuant to the above procedures in any contest held on an established election date as specified where there are more than 1,000 registered voters eligible to participate in that election as of 154 days in advance of the election, or in any contest held on a date other than the established election date where there are more than 5,000 registered voters eligible to participate in that election as of 154 days in advance of the election. The bill would only allow elections officials to conduct a manual vote count for a semifinal official canvass in a precinct pursuant to the above procedures of the count if the count is conducted pursuant to a plan approved by the Secretary of State as specified. The bill would require the Secretary of State to adopt regulations regarding the manual vote counts. Okay, so this looks like it's specifically applying to election day as well. So like ballots that come in on election day. And what ballots come in on election day? They empty the drop boxes. So you're gonna be, oh man. Remember, everybody gets a mail-in ballot in California. So this is we were already trying, like, if you're on the right trying to get rid of these mail-in ballots is your only hope for California. Well, actually it's not your only hope for California in the 2024 election, but we'll get to that later. But them adding, this is such a double whammy, them eliminating the ability to manually count the votes. Why? Like, how are they going to spin this? They're going to be asked about this. Hey guys, why'd you make us so you can't count the votes anymore by hand? What'd you do that for? They're going to have to give a reason and try to. Okay, let's continue. By requiring local election officials to perform additional duties, this bill would impose a state-mandated local program. The California Constitution requires the state to reimburse local agencies and schools for certain costs mandated by the state. Statutory provisions establish procedures for making the reimbursement. The bill would provide that the Commission on State Mandates determines that the bill contains costs mandated by the state. Reimbursement for those costs may be pursuant to the statutory provisions noted above. The bill would declare that it is to take effect immediately as an urgency statute. Urgency statute, guys. Yeah, it's urgent. Oh man. Well, Gavin's not on the ballot. Gavin's, we got to deal with Gavin at the end of his term now, but yeah, okay. I'm not going to read this whole thing. You guys get the gist of it. It's okay. So why would they need to do this? And why would they need to have mail-in ballots? Why is California going so hard on making the infamous V fraud word worse? Like, why are they doing two specific things that seem like it would increase the potential for that type of activity to happen? And ballot harvesting. So we have ballot harvesting. Like, ballot harvesting is legal, from my understanding. Ballot harvesting is legal. Everybody gets mailed in a ballot, and they've made it so they're not allowed to manually count the ballots. Okay. So everybody's always like, Californians get what they vote for. It's a liberal hellhole. everybody needs to leave because, it's just saying like Californians get what they vote for, this and that. Without any sort of shenanigans, according to the official numbers, it was, I believe, 34% of Californians voted for Trump in the last election. And that's Trump. And Trump's like notoriously hated. So I believe it's more of, it would have been more like a 60-40. But last election had mail-in ballots too. I personally think we are in a highly fraudulent system because even in the areas that I'm in, I mean, yeah, you get the super duper wokesters all over the place, but it's certainly not everybody. Most people are pretty in the middle. Most people are pretty standard Californians. There are people that are very, I hate to say brainwashed. It's just there's people that don't want to have to pay attention to this crap all the time. It's exhausting, and I get it. And most Californians have just sort of had this default, I'm going to vote blue because that's generally who the good guys are idea. It's just sort of been ingrained in Californians. And I think that sort of tide started to shift back 5-6 years ago. People are starting to see, I think quite a long time ago, people started to see, oh, holy crap, the left really appear to be the authoritarians. Like they're the ones really not accepting of others and trying to push their views on everybody and canceling anybody that speaks out against it and that sort of thing. People are starting to see that. And my point is, I don't think the vote reflects the consensus in California or what people really think. Yes, California is the capital of wokeness, and that's primarily because of think about all the evil politicians that come out of here. First of all, Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein, Gavin Newsom, Kamala Harris, Schiff, McCarthy. Like, think about these uniparty psychopaths, these warmongering, inside trading psychopaths, all of them. The worst politicians come out of California, except Kevin Kiley. He's pretty cool. Worst politicians come out of California. And then you got big tech. Big tech is just infiltrated with Marxists. And who controls the flow of information? Big tech. Who works at big tech? They hire Marxists. They hire super woke people. And that ideology naturally gets propagated out through the interwebs. Then you got Hollywood, also infiltrated with Marxists. And then all their ideology gets propagated out through the pop music and movies. So this isn't your California electricians and plumbers that we're talking about here. It's California has such major power centers in terms of control of pop culture and sort of what's hip, or at least what the ability to spin what's hip and the cool thing and paint this image of this is what everybody's into and this is what everybody's talking about. And I think people are starting to see through that. Because think about those power centers that I just listed, the politicians. Think about California as if it was a country. California has an economy, how much food we produce, the powerful people that have come here or come from here. California is an insanely powerful political place. And then you talk about big tech and the dissemination of information. How powerful is that? And then you talk about Hollywood. Those three power centers are insane. And I don't think any of those three power centers are representative of the general California populace. I think Hollywood used to be, generally speaking, back in the day, but I don't know. Yeah, so yeah, I guess that's sort of my California rant. So I'm done reading this bill too, so I'll stop sharing this stupid thing. But let's continue with Gavin Newsom because I do want to keep talking about him. I do have some other Newsom stuff that I want to talk about. I'm only going for an hour tonight, guys. So I knew my rant was going to take me for a long time, and I'm doing a show every night this week, so I wasn't too concerned about getting to everything. I do want to talk about the McCarthy stuff a little bit, but I'm probably not going to get into it. So actually, yeah, I'm not even going to talk about Gavin Newsom right now. Let's actually jump right over to this Newsweek article and see if I can read it in time. I think I got like 12 minutes, so yeah, let's jump right over this Newsweek article. Did you guys hear about the FBI's, or well, you hear about this Newsweek article about the FBI and how they're now going to label MAGA supporters? We already knew that they were looking at MAGA in this way, but, well, now Newsweek's talking about it. So here it is, folks. Here is the headline. Hold on, let's see here. All right. So exclusive. Donald Trump followers targeted by FBI as 2024 election nears. Article by William M. Arkin on 10/4/2023 at 5 a.m. The federal government believes the threat of violence and major civil disturbances around the 2024 U.S. presidential election is so great that it has quietly created a new category of extremists that it seeks to track and counter. Donald Trump's army of MAGA followers. The challenge for the Bureau of the Federal Investigation, the primary federal agency charged with law enforcement, is to pursue and prevent what it calls domestic terrorism without direct reference to political parties or affiliations, even though the vast majority of its current anti-government investigations are of Trump supporters, according to the classified data obtained by Newsweek. The FBI is in an almost impossible position, says a current FBI official who requested anonymity to discuss highly sensitive internal matters. The official said that the FBI is intent on stopping domestic terrorism and any repeat of the January 6, 2020 attack on the Capitol. But the Bureau must also preserve the constitutional right of Americans to campaign, speak freely, and protest the government. By focusing on former President Trump and his MAGA supporters, the official said the Bureau runs the risk of provoking the very anti-government activists that the terrorist agencies hope to counter. You think? Especially at the time when the White House is facing congressional Republican opposition claiming that the Biden administration has weaponized the Bureau against the right wing, it has to tread very carefully, says the official. Newsweek spoke to over a dozen current or former government officials who specialize in terrorism in a 3-month investigation to understand the current domestic security landscape and to evaluate what President Joe Biden's administration is doing about what it calls domestic terrorism. Joe Biden's administration and what it calls domestic terrorism, and what Joe Biden, the current president of the United States, calls domestic terrorism is the supporters of his number one his number one challenger in the presidential election, somebody that's polling ahead of him. How they just spelled out weaponization of the DOJ against another political party. This is insane what is happening right now. We are going through what we used to make fun of Russia for. We used to make fun of Russian elections. We used to do that. We can't do that anymore. This is what's happening now. We are Cold War era Russia elections. That's what we are now. This is insane. We just talked about the ballots in California. I don't think there's a chance in California. However, I do think that if every California is fed up, goes and votes red down the ticket or libertarian down the ticket or abstains from voting, if 70% of Californians go out and do that, they're gonna have a real hard time cheating. Anyway, let's keep going. Most requested anonymity because they were not authorized to talk publicly, were reluctant to stay into partisan politics, or were reluctant to stray into partisan politics, or feared the repercussions of speaking frankly. Yeah. Just what we're talking about. The exact theme of this episode. People don't want to talk about stuff just because they fear the repercussions of speaking frankly. Think about that. That is a problem. People fear the repercussions of speaking frankly. These are FBI agents. The FBI is so corrupted that anybody within the FBI that speaks out against this crap that's going on right now, they're going to get hammered. They're probably not going to have any chance of furthering their career. Who knows what they're going to do to agents within the FBI that see what's going on, that don't agree with it. And you agents, any of you agents, and I'm sure some of you agents are listening, any of you agents that don't agree with what's going on within the FBI, nothing's going to change unless you do something about it. You're part of the problem. If you are helping perpetuate this insanity that's going on within the FBI, you guys are busted. If you're affiliated with the FBI in any way whatsoever right now, in many people's eyes, you're the bad guy. Look what you've done. Look what you did to the 2020 election with censoring the Hunter Biden laptop. It's all out there. We know you guys did it. It's proven. You guys went to the big tech corporations. A bunch of CIA guys signed a document saying it's misinformation. And all the tech companies suppressed it. Couldn't even DM it to each other. You guys did that. You're a part of that. And now look what you're continuing to do. You guys, FBI agents, Fed boys, if you're not speaking out against this crap, you're part of the problem. Like you are I'm not trying to be mean or super hyperbolic when I say that, but you're kind of technically an enemy of the people. Like we're just regular people speaking, and you keep upping the ante. It's insane what you guys are doing to us. Some of us are fed up, and we're not going to shut up. We'll keep going. Newsweek has also reviewed the secret FBI and Department of Homeland Security data check that tracks incidents, threats, investigations, and cases to build a better picture. While experts agree that the current partisan environment is changed and unequally dangerous, with the threat not only of violence but most extreme scenarios, possibly civil war, many also could question terrorism is the most effective way to describe the problem. Scroll down a little here. In the most effective way to describe the problem, or that the methods of counterterrorism developed over the past decade in response to Al-Qaeda or other Islamist groups constitute the most fruitful way to craft domestic solutions. Are they comparing MAGA to Al-Qaeda right now? You guys, we are living in clown world. Everything is backwards. Everything's insane. The FBI appears to be comparing MAGA, people that voted for a certain person for president. They seem to be comparing those people to Al-Qaeda. The current political environment is not something that the FBI is necessarily responsible for, nor should it be, says Brian Michael Jenkins, one of the world's leading terrorism experts and senior advisor to the president of the RAND Corporation. Interesting name. In a statement to Newsweek, the FBI, the threat posed by the domestic violent extremists is persistent, evolving, and deadly. The FBI's goal is to detect and stop terrorist attacks, and our focus is on potential criminal violations, violence and threats of violence, anti-government or anti-authoritarian violent extremism is one category of domestic terrorism, as well as one of the FBI's top threat priorities. The FBI further said, "We are committed to protecting the safety and constitutional rights of Americans and will never open an investigation based solely on First Amendment protected activity, including a person's political beliefs or affiliations." Really? Didn't you guys label parents that didn't that spoke out against, what county was that? Loudoun County. Didn't you label those parents domestic terrorists? Didn't you do that? White House declared to comment. The White House declined to comment. The Trump campaign was given an opportunity to comment, but did not do so. What the FBI data shows, from the president down, the Biden administration has presented Trump and MAGA as an existential threat to American democracy and talked up the risk of domestic terrorism and violence associated with the 2024 election campaign. Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans are a threat to the very soul of this country, President Biden tweeted last September. The first time that he explicitly signaled out the former president. MAGA Republicans aim to question not only the legitimacy of the past elections, but the elections being held now and into the future, Biden said. Yeah, damn right we are. Biden's Homeland Security Advisor Liz Sherwood Randall said the use of violence to pursue political ends is a profound threat to our public safety and national security. It is a threat to our national identity, our values, and our norms and rule of law our democracy. All right, I'm just going to pause right there and say, yeah, okay. So FBI, everybody else that may be listening, the only solution to all the stuff that's coming up, and it's going to be very hard, because, there's going to be temptations, and people are going to do horrible, horrible things to MAGA, and they're going to try and provoke MAGA people. The only solution is radical non-violence. Radical nonviolence. Nothing. Don't do anything. These events that they set up where, you get like Antifa and MAGA clashing off, these things feel like a setup. All these things that can turn into just big giant feuds on the street. First of all, we shouldn't be feuding on the street. Imagine how terrified the government would be if MAGA and Antifa found common ground. Imagine how terrified they would be. I know. That's blasphemy saying that, right? Well, just think about it for a little bit. Who's causing more misery on your life? Antifa or the federal government right now? I don't think Antifa's making pounds of ground beef cost $8 a pound. I don't think that's happening. Radical non-aggression, radical non-violence. You show up to these events, you're going to get kicked on, spit on, punched, all that crap. Cops aren't going to do crap. You react to that and do something back, you're going to get arrested. You're going to get charged. You know how this stuff's going to go down. You know how this stuff's set up. They want MAGA to react and do something stupid, do something violent that they couldn't want. January 6th was the biggest blessing for Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats. It couldn't have went better for them. Almost seems like it was a setup. It went so well for them. Could have been a setup, though. They want another one. They want another one really bad. They're going to try and bait people into it. Radical non-violence. Radical non-violence. The reason I say that, too, is because I know people on the right can take it. You guys can take it. You guys can take the abuse. And it's actually nice once you can just... Nothing makes the left more angry than being happy, smiling, being nice to them, and leading your best life. Nothing makes them more angry. I can tell when I'm recognized in public now. I can tell because I'm nice to people. Like, something happens now that didn't used to happen. Like, people used to kind of whatever about me, and just go on without their business. But I can tell when I'm recognized that somebody hates me immediately now. Because I'm generally nice to everybody that I come across. I say hi to everybody, and I try to use a pleasant tone of voice, especially out on the trails and stuff. Weird things have been happening. People treat me very strangely. It's not everyone. I'm not saying everybody recognizes me. It happens very seldomly, but strange things have been happening. Anyway, yeah. This is a small town I live in here. Though the FBI's data shows a dip in the number of investigations since the slew of January 6 cases ended, FBI Director Christopher Wray still says the breach of the Capitol building was not an isolated event, and the threat is not going away anytime soon. In a joint report to Congress this June, the Bureau of the Department of Homeland Security say that threats from DVEs, domestic violent extremists. Oh, they're DVEs. I see. They got a new acronym. How about that? Have increased in the 2 years. And any further increases in threats likely will correspond to potential flashpoints such as high-profile elections and campaigns or contentious current events. by the FBI's standard, how they label people domestic terrorists and all that kind of crap, guarantee they would have to label Elon domestic terrorist. They'd have to call Elon a domestic terrorist because of what he said and all that stuff. And what's even funnier is Elon hates acronyms. He has this like thing where he hates acronyms, and they've called domestic violent extremists DVEs. So by the FBI's definition, they would have to not only call Elon a domestic terrorist, they'd have to call him a DVE, which would double annoy him because he hates acronyms, and that would just be funny. The FBI of DHS reports socio-political developments such as narratives of fraud in the recent general election and the emboldening impact of the violent breach of the U.S. Capitol, conditions related to the COVID-19 pandemic, and conspiracy theories promoting violence will almost certainly spur some domestic terrorists to try and engage in violence. It's a setup, freaking setup. Yeah, they're prepping you guys for all the false flags that are about to pop off. I didn't say that, YouTube. Alleged false flags that might pop off. They aren't really false flags. That doesn't happen. YouTube, Raj, don't kick me off YouTube, guys. Come on. We're all friends here. The threats listed in the paragraph are all clearly associated with America's right, in the particular with Trump MAGA supporters. Right after January 6th, the FBI co-authored a restricted report, Domestic Violence Extremist Emboldened in Aftermath of Capitol Breach, Elevated Domestic Terrorism Threat of Violence Likely Amid Political Transitions and Beyond. That's the title of the report. A freaking mouthful. In which is shifted definition of agave, anti-government, anti-authority, violent extremism. What is with them and all their ridiculous acronyms? The FBI is absurd. You guys you're a joke. What do you guys do? Man, we used to respect you guys. Like, I used to watch shows where I liked the FBI. I used to like Criminal Minds. I used to like the FBI. I don't anymore because you guys are proving yourselves to be so ridiculous. You are a clown show. Like, all of this stuff is already ridiculous enough. And then you got to have your silly little acronyms. I get why Elon is so annoyed with acronyms because they're so freaking ridiculous. You're going to call it agave? Really, you guys? Oh, the FBI is freaking ridiculous. I can't stand how absurd the intelligence agencies have become. It's okay. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to be triggered anymore. Agave. It was a subtle change, little noticed, but a gigantic departure for the Bureau. Trump and his army of supporters were acknowledged as a distinct category of domestic violent extremists, even as the FBI was saying publicly that political views were never part of its criteria to investigate or prevent domestic terrorism. Where the FBI sees threats is also plain from the way it categorizes them, a system which on the surface is designed to appear nonpartisan. This shifted subtly days after the events of January 6th when it comes to what the Bureau called agave. We cannot and do not investigate ideology. A senior FBI official reassured the press after January 6th. We focus on individuals who commit or intend to commit violence or criminal activity that constitutes a federal crime or possesses a threat to national security. Is that why you guys went and raided the chick's home in Alaska that looked like somebody that was at the Capitol? Wasn't at the Capitol. She looked like somebody in a picture that was at the Capitol. And you guys raided her home. Is that it? We do not investigate ideology? Is that right, you guys? Okay. All right. Well, let's keep going. The FBI went further in October 2022 when it created a new subcategory, agave author, those who are a threat but do not fit into its anarchist, militia, or sovereign citizens groups. Introduced without any announcement or reported here for the first time, the new classification is officially defined as domestic violence extremists who cite anti-government or anti-authority motivations for violence or criminal activity not otherwise defined, such as individuals motivated by a desire to commit violence against those with a real perceived association with a specific political party or faction of a specific political party. They're calling me a domestic terrorist. They already are, guaranteed. Even though I say radical nonviolence, all that stuff. But I also say be a warrior in a garden. Train men, be in good physical condition. Learn how to shoot. Know how to operate your firearms. Carry a firearm. All that good stuff. Know martial arts. Be nice to people. All that stuff. Yeah, let's continue. In its statement to Newsweek, the FBI said the agave threat includes anarchist, violent extremists, malicious, violent. Okay, I'm sorry. I already read that. Another senior intelligence official who requested anonymity told Newsweek, "We've crossed the Rubicon." In emailed responses to questions, he said, "Trump's army constitutes the greatest threat of violence domestically, politically. That's the reality and the problem set. That's what the FBI as a law enforcement agency has to deal with. But whether Trump and his supporters are a threat to national security, to the country, whether they represent a threat to civil war, that's a trickier question. And that's for the country to deal with, not the FBI." What kind of doublespeak garbage gobbledygook was that? Are you joking? You're meddling in all of it. What do you... Oh, these fed boys, these glowy fed boys are the worst. The revelations that some Trump supporters are being specifically targeted by the FBI fits with accusations from among them that the Bureau has them in its sights, and it is the political tool of the repressive deep state in Washington, D.C., bent on persevering the hold of the political establishment at the cost of democracy. Such views are not only from the furthest fringe. Some of Trump's Republican allies in Congress have called for the FBI to be defunded over such accusations and the prosecution of the Trump supporters over the January 6th attack. The fight over the FBI is in itself helping to stoke the political temperature ahead of the 2024 election. For perhaps the first time in our history, the FBI's counterterrorism operation tempo remains high for the international terrorism, state-sponsored terrorism, and domestic terrorism. Simultaneously, FBI Director Wray declared at Texas A&M University this summer. All right, so I want you guys to keep in mind, they're saying that MAGA supporters, Trump supporters, people that voted for Donald Trump, half the country, 78 million people that voted for Trump, they're the biggest danger to national security right now. Meanwhile, people are flooding across the border. God knows who. They come across the border, say, "Yeah, I'm so-and-so." They give them a bag full of goodies, and off in the wind you go. That's what they're doing. And somehow the people that voted for Donald Trump are the biggest threat to national security. A senior intelligence official who works at the official of the Director of National Intelligence says that it is hard to digest the evidence. When you are used to hearing that the sky is falling every day, when that's the nature of the cable news and Twitter worlds we live in, where everything is overstated, there's a lot of room for doubt, he says. Where things are overstated? Because it seems like you're understating the fact that you guys are labeling half the country domestic terrorists. But I say as a citizen, as much as a government analyst, the senior official says we're at a unique moment and the numbers are daunting. Unique moment is damn right. The FBI officials say that those who are charged with upholding the law see numbers that are now worrying, but there is also a struggle to characterize the specific threat to America and whether it really should be called terrorism, as well as the proper response that is not media hype, but also not easily quantifiable. The FBI official says, are we talking just about a few thousand Proud Boy types, or are we talking about 30% of the country that are core Trump voters? Are we talking about extremists bent on political violence, or just a lot of disgruntled and frustrated citizens? I don't know the answer, and I can assure you the answer isn't any secret intelligence that the government possesses. Okay, so are we talking about extremists bent on political violence or a lot of disgruntled and frustrated citizens? I don't know the answer. What? You just... Okay. So you're saying that right off the bat, well, at least 30% of them are domestic terrorists. But what about these other, 20% that are just disgruntled and frustrated citizens? Well, I don't know. They could be domestic terrorists too. Is that what you're saying right there? You psychopath! Okay. All right. The FBI and other intelligence agencies responded for domestic matters, track the number for domestic-related disruptions, arrests, investigations based on the cascades, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's all just instructions on how to stay up to date. Classified numbers seen by Newsweek substantiate the FBI public claims while also showing that a significant part of increases in 2020 and 2021 were related to protests after the murder of George Floyd and during COVID, as well as elections in January 6th. That said, the data show clearly that the main targets of the investigations and cases open were of Trump supporters. While the number of investigations in 2021 almost doubled from 2020 to around 9,000, the number of full investigations that led to arrests was 1,446. Not much more than the number of 1,146 January 6 protesters who had been charged with a crime, according to the Justice Department. So all of the investigations that led to arrests, there's only 1,146 of them were January 6 people. Virtually all of the 2021 increase are specifically related to these events, including the enormous growth in the FBI, what the FBI calls assessments, which more than doubled from 2019 to 2021 and are revealed here for the first time. Assessments are most speculative of any FBI investigation, where a special agent or intelligence analyst only suspects wrongdoing because of association or encounter of further looks into somebody's background. Assessments are the closest thing to domestic spying that exists in America and generally not talked about by the Bureau. Oh man. I like to think that my FBI assessor is a pretty blonde that's confused and doesn't really know where she stands politically, and I'm slowly radicalizing her by forcing her to watch my podcast. The data from the FBI shows a significant decline in the number of investigations and cases opened in the number. Oh, and I'm sorry. The FBI, it's the blonde female. I feel like I should clarify that. My assigned FBI agent, it's a blonde female that I have in my mind. Okay. So just clarifying that. The data from the FBI shows a significant decline in the number of investigations and cases opened in the past year in 2022 below 2020 levels, including a drop in the number of anti-government, anti-authoritarian extremists, agaves, as a result of closure of many January 6 cases. I can't believe you guys are so ridiculous with your freaking acronyms. I can't stand how ridiculous the FBI is. And according to the FBI data attained this week by Newsweek, 31% of the investigations now relate to agaves, and 60% of the investigations include cases categorized as agave and civil unrest, making a significant shift away from investigations associated with race-related causes or armed militias. Drilling further into the individual cases behind the numbers, nearly 2/3 of the FBI's current investigations are focused on Trump supporters and others suspected of violating what the FBI calls anti-riot laws. In its statement to Newsweek, the FBI said that investigations are not only limited to Trump supporters, these violent extremists have targeted both Republicans and Democrat members of Congress. The FBI notes in a statement to Newsweek, "We cannot and do not investigate ideology," says a senior FBI official. "We focus only on individuals who commit or intend to commit violent criminal. We focus only on individuals who commit or intend to commit violence." Oh, so you guys are doing pre-crime now. That's what you're doing. Well, we're focusing on this individual because he intends to commit violence. You're doing pre-crime. Got it. Okay. "We focus only on individuals who commit or intend to commit violence or criminal activity that constitutes a federal crime or possesses a threat to national security." So if you think about it, they're going to investigate you guys. That's what they're saying there. I'm going to read that again. "We cannot do not investigate ideology," says a senior FBI official. "We focus on individuals who commit or intend to commit violence or criminal activities that constitutes a federal crime or poses a threat to national security." Thought crime, pre-crime. And indeed, the number of investigations of groups has dropped by 4/5 over a decade to only 8 groups investigated in 2022. In their June 2023 report, Strategic Intelligence Assessments and Data on Domestic Terrorism, the FBI and DHS further observed the racially motivated violence from those other than white supremacists that have posed a general low threat of violence. The threat from militias has also declined, with armed groups more disjointed. That is, in previous years, other groups such as the Oath Keepers and Proud Boys prominent at the U.S. Capitol have since local chapters and members following convictions over J6. Yeah, convictions where you gave one dude over 20 years and he wasn't even there. Enrique Tarrio. Pretty sure they gave Enrique Tarrio 22 years and he wasn't even there. Guys gave Joe Biggs like 17 years, probably because he used to be affiliated with InfoWars. You guys are dirty. You guys are trying to do Owen Schroyer dirty. X has still done Owen Schroyer dirty. He hasn't been allowed back on the platform. What did Owen Schroyer do? He didn't do nothing. Why are you not allowing him back on, Elon? Because he's associated with InfoWars. All sides of the FBI numbers to further their claims. The FBI and the administration of the front line stressing that that is doing more than the threat demands, more resources and freer hand. Republicans, on the other hand, see the FBI's focus on January 6th as lawbreaking associated with it as weaponization on the part of the Biden administration to suppress GOP voters, to stigmatize the right wing, and to transform what they see as principled dissent against societal norms. For example, with regard to abortion, about what children are taught in public schools, or in rejection of transgender categorizations as extremism. The left sees the same numbers as proof that Donald Trump and his supporters are not just dangerous to democracy, but also the government isn't doing enough. Michigan Senator Gary Peters, chairman of the Senate Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee, constantly argues that the FBI is failing to fight the scope of what white supremacist terrorist attacks. The FBI is failing to fight the full scope of white supremacist terrorist attacks. What white supremacist terrorist attacks are you talking about? Others argue that the FBI and law enforcement in general is too sympathetic to white supremacists, a view punctuated by an assumption made by many after January 6th that a disproportionate number of protesters and those arrested were veterans or members of law enforcement, an allegation that isn't true when compared to their numbers of general population. I immediately feel like there is going to be some crazy violent event and white supremacists are immediately going to be blamed. It's going to be something horrific happens that's violent, and it's clear, it's almost too obvious that white supremacists are responsible for it. A lot like those not Lauren Chen. Was it Lauren Chen? Those the freaking Nazi guys in Florida. You guys know what I'm talking about. The blood tribe guys. The glowy bed boy guys dressed up as Nazis. Anyway, the freaking bone face guy. Remember, he was over in Ukraine. It's Lauren Southern. I think Lauren Southern was reporting on it. One of the Laurens. I get them mixed up. Okay. Some experts, such as Brian Michael Jenkins, question whether conceiving of disgruntled Americans as terrorists is helpful exercise. These are not people who are going underground, he says, referring to domestic terrorist organizations of the past, such as Black Panthers, the Weather Underground, or the IRA, or Red Brigades overseas. As Jenkins sees it, those we label as domestic terrorists, people marching with guns, or those wearing military-like uniforms, are more performative than indicative of some true terrorism class in America. This is not the 60s or 70s when radical groups, even civil rights and peace movements, were driven by violence, Jenkins says. I don't think terrorism is a particularly useful framework for viewing this problem. Well, yeah, I tend to agree with that. Okay. An outsized response to January 6th. Oh, man, this article is insanely long. All right, I don't think I have time to finish this article, guys. Yeah, I do. It's not very long. It's not as long as I thought it was. Yeah, I can read the rest. I need to take a sip really quick. The Biden supporters. R. Barracks, how you doing? Wally Worlds, you're not blonde or female? Oh, well. Tough break, dude. Patriot Act led to this. Yeah, it really did. Department of Homeland Security, right? It was started from 9/11, wasn't it? Oh boy. All right, sorry folks, I was parched. Okay. Alrighty. An outsized response to January 6th. January 6th, like 9/11, provoked an outsized response from a domestic intelligence apparatus. Oh, there's so much in that sentence right there. January 6th, like 9/11, provoked an outsized response from a domestic intelligence apparatus that had failed to warn or prepare for the likelihood of mass violence on that day. Yeah. It's almost like they let January 6th happen, huh? A lot of people, anyway. Once the breach of the Trump supporters occurred, the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, and the White House began their almost singular focus investigating and charging the perpetrators at the U.S. Capitol, and extrapolating the January 6th into the future. In his first week in office, President Biden directed the Intelligence Committee to undertake a 100-day review of the domestic threat. Of course he did. In March of 2021, the review resulted in a public declaration that merely stated that domestic violent extremists posted an elevated threat. It concluded that most lethal threat came from two groups, racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, specifically white supremacists and militia violent extremists. Our experience on the ground confirms this. Attorney General Garland said, the number of open FBI domestic terrorism investigations this year has increased significantly. Notice how their biggest threat is threats to the government. That's their biggest concern, is threats to the government. There's random attacks on the street every day now. People are getting randomly stabbed every day in cities across the country, randomly walking down the street, sometimes in daylight, just no affiliation with the person, just walking up to them and stabbing them. The biggest threat is MAGA supporters. The biggest threat to waking up the public to what's really going on. Okay. Referring to Garland's comments, and a defense intelligence officials who participated in the review told Newsweek, experience on the ground here means January 6th and other protests questioning the results of the 2020 elections. But in thinking about the new threat, the review fell back upon 2 decades of experience fighting international terror, the official explained. That skewed the bias towards seeing groups such as the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers as militia movements around the country as the problem, because that was the counterterrorism apparatus that was used, focusing on groups such as Al Qaeda. Yeah, so they are comparing the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers to Al Qaeda. Second, the official says groups as opposed to individuals present a framework that lends itself towards a strategy to stop violence before it even starts, and there was a shift toward a risk more lone wolf attacks by those radicalized on social media. Organized groups fit more neatly into the intelligence community skill set. The organized militias, like the one with the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping plot, where like 11 of the 14 of you guys were feds. That one. They're painting this picture about how the most dangerous thing is white supremacists and, Proud Boys and Oath Keepers and all this. And there was a bunch of feds in the crowd on January 6th, the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping plot. They paint this picture of who the dangerous people are, and then they go and they try to set up scenarios to prove that there's really these dangerous people. The FBI are just a straight up corrupt organization. It's insane. If you guys consider yourselves to be good agents, you just need to quit. Go be a beat cop somewhere. Go do something else. Stop. Well, your pension. You guys are helping perpetuate evil if you consider yourself to be a good FBI agent, and you're not speaking up against this shit. This is starting to hurt regular American people. Jenkins prefers the term domestic political violence over domestic terrorism and reaches back into history to stress that the current state of play is maybe not quite as dire as some claim. Violence in America at alarming high levels, protests protesters and groups dangerous to our society, dividing the nation into armed camps. These are all descriptions, Jenkins says, that appeared more than 5 decades ago in the 1968 report of the National Commission of the Causes of Prevention of Violence. For the applied homogeny in red states and blue states, there are more complex mosaics in terms of race, ethnicity, religion, and politics than North versus South ever was, Jenkins writes. Former White House head of counterterrorism, Christopher P. Costa, argues that while there is an overriding government aim in protecting U.S. citizens from unflinchingly focusing on the rule of law, the government domestic terrorist threat comes from only a small percentage of misguided fellow Americans. Yeah, yet you guys are looking at half of Americans. The FBI, despite its rhetoric and numbers, seem to agree. The Bureau applies only limited resources to deal specifically with domestic terrorism, and those resources haven't really increased. The FBI has only about 4,500 agents, intelligence analysts, attorneys, and other staff in its field offices focused on terrorism, according to the Bureau. Only about 1/4 of these focus on domestic terrorism. The Bureau allocates about 1,100 personnel, or an increase of about 3,000 full-time people since January 6th. The total is about 3% of the FBI's employees. Classified data from the Office of Director of National Intelligence shows that the number of intelligence reports issued on domestic terrorism remains relatively minor. Of 11,945 intelligence reports prepared, the domestic agencies between 2017 and 2021, only 901, or fewer than 10%, related to domestic terrorism, the remainder mostly dealing with international matters and critical infrastructure protection. For a problem the Biden administration and the FBI describe as existential, the resources are meager, says another terrorist expert working at the government-funded think tank. Maybe that's the way it should be. The FBI is strictly staying in its lane, but it is certainly not what the public thinks or expects. So what exactly is terrorism when applied to American citizens, and does it apply to current political situation? Domestic terrorism is defined in federal law as domestic activities that involve acts dangerous to human life that are a violation of the criminal laws of the United States or of any state, and appear to be intended to intimidate or coerce the civilian population, influence the policy of the government by intimidation or coercion, or affect the conduct of the government by mass destruction or assassination or kidnapping. They just described what took place in the summer of 2020 in Portland, Oregon. There was a sustained period of firebombing of a federal building, and they laid siege to downtown Oregon and tormented the citizens of that city for over 100 nights to promote a political agenda. That's domestic terrorism. I haven't heard one mention of that. And they call themselves Antifa. They have cells all over the place. I hate to be all boomer about Antifa, but if you're going to call Trump supporters domestic terrorists based purely on January 6th, and you're not going to say anything about a sustained attack on a city for over 100 nights that got next to no news coverage, freaking madness. Remember the Waukesha massacre? The car that drove through the parade and massacred people? Remember that? Barely heard about that. Dude seemed like a domestic terrorist to me. The trans shooter in Tennessee that went and shot up a Christian school that had a manifesto that we still haven't seen seems like a domestic terrorist to me. The government generally uses the terms domestic terrorism and domestic violent extremism interdependently, though there are subtle differences. The most important being that terrorism is statutorily defined, and extremism avoids the label of terrorist. According to the FBI and DHS, the word violent is important because advocating political or social positions and activism, the other is strong rhetoric and even generalized philosophical embrace of violent tactics, does not necessarily constitute violence extremism and thus constitutionally protected. So they just pretty much described like ANCAPs, what ANCAPs say. A lot of people do say that when you reach, I'm not advocating, and I'm not saying this, YouTube. I'm just saying what other people say. A lot of people that consider themselves to be anarchists would say that violence is justified at a certain point. A lot of people would say that, and they would, and by this description here, they're saying that that's not necessarily violent extremism. Okay, they're saying that, and then at the same time, they're labeling, Mima that wandered into the Capitol building on January 6th, guaranteed she got called domestic terrorist. They're just going to expand and expand on this term. Anyway, our barracks, when they start procrastination, when they start prosecutions of BLM founders or Antifa, I'll take them seriously again. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. The government generally uses the terms domestic terrorism and domestic violence. Okay, I'm sorry, I already read that. We're almost done here, folks. In defining the federal crime of terrorism as an offense, there is no distinction based on political views. It is simply a matter, as the FBI stresses, of holding those who break the law accountable or think about breaking the law, right? As you guys said earlier, and in the post 9/11 paradigm, collecting intelligence and targeting domestic actors to prevent them from breaking the law. There it is. Pre-crime. Yeah. Freaking Minority Report. Okay. Experts agree that the 2044 election approaches, there will be greater pressure to prevent law breaking, one that necessitates infiltration of political circles and other controversial government activity. They're saying right there that they're going to infiltrate your groups, guys. Yeah, they're going to try and create groups too. Experts agree that as the 2024 election approaches, there will be greater pressure to prevent law breaking. That means that, translation, as the 2024 election approaches, the FBI is going to do everything that it can to provoke MAGA and Trump supporters into breaking the law. And because of that necessitates infiltrating political circles and other controversial government activity. Because of the difficulty in proving motivation with regard to a charge of domestic terrorism, most prosecutors, being practical, tend to charge individuals with the crimes instead, even in clear cases of political violence. The Department of Justice has used an array of criminal statutes to prosecute individuals who engage in domestic violence extremism, including charges associated with firearms, arson, riots, attacks on federal officers, and in the case of January 6th, even trespassing on government facilities. Okay, so they're saying that it's really hard to prove terrorism. So usually they just charge them with the crime, So if it's like arson, if somebody firearms a federal building, or firebombs a federal building, throws Molotov cocktails at a federal building with officers inside, instead of calling that domestic terrorism, they just charge them with arson. You see the difference there? Because terrorism is hard to improve the intent of like trying to push any sort of a political agenda. That's what they're trying to say there. So what they're trying to do instead is they're going to label all MAGA supporters domestic terrorists, because all they need to do is get that in the mind of the public, because then anybody that is psychologically associated with MAGA is considered a domestic terrorism. It's like, woo, the boogeyman, can't talk to that person anymore, much like all the people that slowly distance themselves from me because I talk about things that I've always been talking about, but now they are controversial. Sorry, I'll continue. We're almost done, guys. We're almost done, I swear. Even my friends and colleagues debate as to whether the January 6th was an act of terrorism, says Jenkins. If you have the people who have been writing about this for 30 plus years struggling with the formation, you can imagine how difficult it must be for the public. Jenkins thinks that the term itself is a distraction. The senior intelligence official who works at the Office of the Director of National Intelligence said Biden's rhetoric on domestic terrorism could goad his opponents into taking more extreme action, particularly those who have now lost their faith in elections or believe the system is rigged against them. Yes, that's the goal. They want to demoralize you into doing something stupid. Don't do it, guys. Don't do anything violent. It's so clear that's what they want to happen. It's so clear that they want MAGA to do something stupid. Don't do it. Don't do it, guys. They are trying so hard to get you. They're already going to false flag you guys. Don't let them goad you into actually doing something stupid. So we have I almost want to start some sort of group just to get Fed boys to infiltrate it, just so I can talk shit about the Feds the whole time. And like, we never actually do anything. We just start a group and all we do is end up sitting around talking shit about the Feds. That's what we should do. So we have the president increasing his own inflammatory rhetoric, which leads Donald Trump and the Republicans to do the same, which influences the news media, which influences the rhetoric. He said, the FBI, it's just in the middle of this mess. No, they are starting this mess, probably heading for trouble, but mostly left out on the limb by anger and indifference of the American public. All right, that's the article. All right, I just read you guys the whole article, but if you want to go read it yourself, this is title is The Enemy Within. This is on newsstands today, it looks like. Yeah, they got Joe Biggs on the cover. That's Joe Biggs right there on the cover of this. So I'm sharing it with you guys right there. That's him in the front. The guy's eyes scratched out, but that's Joe Biggs right there. So I wonder if Ray Epps is in this photo anywhere. All right, folks. All right, all you domestic terrorists. I guess that's what we got for this evening. I already went over. I only plan to go for an hour. Man, I'm pushing 2 now. All right. Yep. I think that's all I got for tonight, you guys. This is just, I'm sorry I got all worked up tonight. It's just so many shenanigans, folks. I can't help it. I get worked up sometimes. Casey Martin, nice to see ya. Can't vote your way out of communism. You're damn right. It's all agitprop. What's an agitprop? Oh, just like Pravda used in the USSR. I'm gonna have to look up what agitprop is. So Terry Wallace, Casey Martin, nice to see you over there on Rumble. All you guys watching over there on X, I should say, if you watched to the end, please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. It greatly helps the show grow. You guys know the algorithm's not going to help me at all. So, well, it might on X, who knows. But if you'd like to help the show grow, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the Rumble channel, share on X, subscribe, like, follow, all that good stuff. You guys are wonderful. Love you guys. And, before we do it, our barracks, thank you so much. Yeah, I'll be doing another show tomorrow night. Hopefully I'll just go for an hour tomorrow night, but probably not, because I got all of Oakland I got to talk about, and who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. You guys know me, I could just ramble on for hours about nonsense. So, all right, you know how we do it, folks. Before we get out of here, I got to read you a joke from the greatest book ever written, The Truth About Chuck Norris. Let's see what we got tonight. All right. Oh no, I already read that joke before. Man, we're on episode 65, guys. We're moving pretty fast here. All right, guys, this is a highly inappropriate joke, but so are most of them. And without any further ado, what are you talking about, Shelly? Wash hands. I don't know what you mean. I don't know what you're getting out there. All right, Shelly, you might want to tune out now because this joke isn't great. So you might want to turn it off now, Shelly. All right, folks, here's the Chuck Norris joke of the evening. When Chuck Norris punches you in the uterus, you become pregnant. Don't try an abortion either. It only makes the fetus stronger. On that note, stay CaliBased.